Hello everybody. Today I'm in my living room and I have a project to do. As you can see, I'm wearing these gloves as a barrier to my skin. What we have here are photos from when I was a child and before then. I'm over 50 and these are my baby albums. My grandmother started these books for me when I was born. That's how old these are. So I'm not touching them with my bare skin because, dust mites, mold, whatever may be in these. They've been packed away for many, many years. So I'm going to go through them and I have to get a system of organization in place. Basically, what I'm doing with these photos is as I go through them, I want to organize them. I want to take them out of the albums. I don't want to keep the albums. And I was trying to think of the best way to do that. And it's a big project because that's a huge tote of photos. And the only thing I came up with is maybe some clasp envelopes or Tyvek envelopes. I don't know yet. And then organize them by not necessarily theme. I'm having trouble coming up with the right words here. For example, I know that at least one of the books is like my whole entire childhood. But then there's a few books that are of vacations. My grandparents used to take me on vacation every single year. So I've been a lot of places. And those books I would put in their own envelope. What is my end goal? Just to save space, just to condense. But I just thought it would be fun today to take a look at what there is and then show some old photos and go down memory lane. I have a nice thick garbage bag ready. It's like a contractor's bag because these are heavy things that I'm going to be putting in here, so I don't want it to rip. The other thing about these albums, because they're so old, you can see they're yellowed. So I don't want to keep these albums. They're ripping. So that's another reason I'm doing this, to condense all the photos. So here's my baby photo. But as I go through the photos, I am trying to keep them in order. See how gross this album is? This is exactly why I'm doing this. Thankfully, the photos themselves aren't disgusting. They're not even yellowed. Does anybody remember this toy here? This was a little dog. I don't know who made it back then. I don't know if it was Fisher-Price or who, but it was a little walking dog. This is a cute story. So when I was little, I had an imaginary friend. And one day my grandfather came home from work. We had a family farm. And in his jacket was this little puppy. As soon as I saw the puppy sticking his head out of my grandfather's jacket, I called him by my imaginary friend's name. He used to run around the neighborhood. The animal control people were so upset with my grandparents because the dog would get loose all the time, but he was smart. He used to look both ways before crossing the street. He was like a poodle mix, but great dog. I remember him as a small child. He was my pal. As you can see, I'm sitting here in a sandbox with him. Here I am in my grandfather's farm. This was one of his gardens, and this is where he always did the bean poles. So we always had fresh green beans grown here in this garden. He had many gardens. This was just one. The glue from the album has actually deteriorated the pictures. I am able to salvage them. Like here I'm playing Pin the Tail on the Donkey at a birthday party. But that's a shame. Here I am opening up some birthday presents, and I have to say, boy, I wish I had those Barbie outfits now. Aren't those beauties? These here are pictures taken in Nova Scotia. So this is a museum in Nova Scotia. So there's more to that museum. Here's another photo. This is a really hilarious story. I remember it like it was yesterday. So we went to some resort in California, and it had this huge diving board. It's way up here, which is not even in the picture. It's huge. But as you can see, it was a 12-foot deep end. And I got up on the diving board. Now, growing up, I had relatives with pools. We didn't have a swimming pool, but my aunt and uncle had a swimming pool, and the local beach had a swimming pool. So I was a fish as a kid. So this is really funny because I got up on this diving board. Around the pool were a bunch of girls, older than me, of course. I was a tween here, but these older girls were around the pool, and they started cheering and clapping me on. And then I felt pressured, like, well, I can't let them down. And I did the biggest belly flop off that diving board, and oh boy, did that hurt. But this is the picture to prove it. So this is a fun memory. In one California vacation, we stopped at Universal Studios. I had the time of my life. This was me in a movie. It wasn't a real movie. If you've ever been to Universal Studios, you know, they have like little mock movies and they pick people to star in them. And I was grandma, and I had a bag. I guess it was like a bank robbery or something. And I was carrying the bag around, and this is me. There's my bag. And I got pie in my face in the movie. So that's definitely a fun memory. In fact, it was fun. Like, I wasn't even scared. It tasted really good too. But unfortunately, at the end of this, they give you a videotape. And when my grandmother passed away, somebody threw out my videotape. But at least I have the pictures. My grandmother saved the little pamphlet from the hotel we stayed in. And this was the Disneyland Hotel. So this was in the 80s, and I want to point out a couple of things here. Look at my pants. They're high up to half of my calf, and I had white socks and Bobo sneakers, and I don't know if you can see it too well because it's kind of blurry in the photo, but my jacket is covered with souvenir pins. And I see people today, like on eBay, selling those souvenir pins that I had covering my jacket. That was the style back then in the 80s. So while we were there, we stopped at the San Diego Zoo. And this is also a funny picture because if you see the pants I'm wearing here, in the 80s, this was very popular. You'd have a plaid shirt untucked and you'd wear it over stirrup pants. And there was a stirrup, like a stretchy elastic band that went under your foot inside your sock and shoe. And here I am at the zoo petting a little deer. How many of you remember stickers in the 80s? I had sticker albums, but this is all my grandmother saved. It's just a little note card somebody gave me, so she put it in my album. But these were the kinds of stickers. We had scratch and sniff. We had bubble stickers with liquid in them that had glitter. Oh boy, those were the days. I had so many sticker albums. There's a note in here from my little sister, and it says to put these stickers in my album. So cute. Unicorns were a big thing back then too. Of course, there are memories in here that are painful to go back and look at. You know, I have greeting cards for people that have passed away, or I have pictures of people that I'm no longer friends with. And it's painful to go back and revisit all that. But this is good. It's healing. It's getting this condensed. And it's passing on memories to people who want to keep them for future purposes, whether that be my son or daughter or both. I don't know yet. This is a cow that you could actually press the udders and you could milk it. I don't know how many of you remember this. I still remember this, but I don't know what happened to it. I wish I did. It's so adorable. I'm just looking back at the old Christmas decorations my grandmother had. And it's funny because I haven't seen these kinds of dolls in years. I've probably seen them online, like in Etsy or eBay, but I haven't seen any. I know they used to have a lot of animated Santas on the store shelves, and it's just not something I've seen lately. It was me as Cyndi Lauper in 1985. We also went to SeaWorld when we were in California. We're sitting behind these folks in these rows. And this is also a very funny story. There was a lady sitting right in front of us. She's not shown here in the photo, but she had a big hat on because of the sun. And a seagull went over and made a mess on her hat. And she turned around and blamed me because she thought I had spilled my soda on her. This album my grandmother made for me, and it has all of my school records from the time I went to school. I was entered into a contest, and it was a readathon, and I won an award. And ironically, this was for the MS Society. Years later, my mother would go on to develop multiple sclerosis. But that's not the whole story. It's hard to talk about the past and bad things that happened, but it's good to talk about it, to get it out of your system and to heal from it. And what happened when I won that multiple sclerosis contest? Basically, I read the most books. I read the most books in the entire school. This was elementary school, mind you. I want to say I was like in 4th grade or something like that. I don't know the exact year, but just consider that for a minute. I read the most books. This time period, okay, we had books. We didn't have iPads. We didn't have anything, well, I didn't anyway. I didn't have a digital product that read me the books. I had to physically read the books, and the librarian had to track it. So she kept track of who was there, who read the books, and all that. And when it was time to present the awards, they brought me up, and I didn't even know I had won. That was the thing. They didn't tell me in advance that I had won. And they brought up another little girl. I got a little windbreaker, and I got the little blue ribbon, and I got a certificate, and then the principal announced that we were winners, but she got the stuffed dog. And I was like, hey, where's my stuffed dog? And I do kind of feel gypped. The reason she got the stuffed dog, and this is messed up, okay? This is really messed up. Even though I read way more books than she did, she got the stuffed dogs because her parents found out how much money I raised, because for every book you read, you got like 10 cents or something like that. I don't recall the exact amount, but I raised so much money along with reading the books, okay? She didn't read anywhere near the books I read. She read like 10 books, but she won the grand prize of the stuffed dog because her parents donated a large sum of money to the school. Now, I don't know how all you feel about that, but I felt like I was gypped. As a little kid, I had put in the time and the work, and that just goes to show you, life is just not fair. And sometimes life just happens like that. No matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you try, in the end, sometimes you just can't win. But that's okay. I'm getting it out of my system right now. I also have this little greeting card that my grandmother saved for me, and this was my piano teacher's greeting card that she gave me, and this is a really cute story. I was walking home. It's on a dangerous strip of road. The speed limit is like 50 miles an hour. There's a sidewalk, but it's pretty dangerous if you think about it. You know, I was just a kid walking home next to a highway that was 50 miles an hour, and somebody hit a bird. A bird flew down and hit the windshield. And I bent down and I picked up that little bird and I cuddled it. I sat down and I cuddled it. And this lady who gave me this card, she drove by as I was sitting on the sidewalk cuddling that bird. Now, I didn't know she saw me because I didn't see her. The next day I go to school and she's telling the entire class about her ride home that night before. And she said that she saw this little girl walking down the sidewalk and graciously bending down to pick up an injured bird. And I wanted to go under that desk so bad. My face must have been as red as this bird here. And she was going on and on about it. And I was so embarrassed. And I remember just thinking, oh my goodness. She never did tell them who it was. People probably figured it out by the redness in my face. But she sent me this little card thanking me for rescuing that little bird. So those were the first two albums that I have just gone through. I still have a lot more to go through. And the rest, I believe, are like vacations I went on. So those are going to be some fun videos too. Looking back at the 80s and where I vacationed and old photos. That should be a lot of fun. But to conclude this video, I just wanted to read you a poem that somebody wrote for me. This is so cute. So I grew up on a farm and we had a really long driveway and a huge stone wall that bordered the entire length of the driveway. And there was an elderly gentleman sitting on the stone wall when I went skipping down the driveway one day to go tend to the ears of corn. And I went up to him and said, hello. And I asked him if he had had lunch. And he told me no. So I invited him back to my grandparents' house for lunch. So he wrote me a poem about it. And this is what he said. A laughing, merry young girl ran down the grassy hill, laughing, wondering, asking, have you had lunch? And I said to him, I live in the red house on the hill. Come with me for lunch, if you will. And he said, I was astounded, wondered, pondered, accepted, and gathered myself. At last at the red hill, the young girl called out, Grandmother, I brought a friend. And that's it. And then he signs his name. His name was Ben. He was about 75 years old. I was 12, I believe, when this happened, maybe a little younger. And I used to see him all the time. He was a jeweler and he moved into this little apartment when his wife passed away. And so he lived there, but he used to like coming up over here because of the farm and the farmland and the cornfield. So he used to visit and I used to see him all the time. And then sadly, one day I no longer saw him and I went home and I asked my grandparents, where did he go? Funny story, 75-year-old guy, he met somebody new and he swept her off her feet and they got married and moved away. Anyway, I thought that was fun to conclude the video today with that. Thanks for watching. Take care.